So far, we have only seen content management features that basically a normal user would also use sometimes. Maybe not in an in-depth manner, but probably occasionally. Now, what will come is really developer level stuff. So we will still remain in the admin, but this is not something somebody without developer background would most possibly use. And the first feature we will take a look at is called projections. And projections is all about listing content. Very customizable, a lot of features inside, a lot of stuff you need to understand. But long story short, it's really about listing content. So far, we have seen that the search feature lists some content items. The blocks feature lists some content items. Taxonomies lists content items under specific terms. But the projection feature kind of builds or kind of provides everything and much more. Well, the reason that these separate features still have their own ways of listing content items is because those lists are highly specialized. And you should be able, to be able to use them without projections. But with projections, you can also build much better list for the same things as well. So you can also build a list where you fetch the blog post of a blog, for example. So let's take a look at it. Let's say farewell to our meerkats. The projections module or the projections feature is the first feature which is not enabled by the default recipe. So let's go to the modules screen, but actually search and indexing wasn't enabled either. Whatever. And here under the module screen, let's search for projector, and it is enabled, so I don't know why you say that so then. But the menu item is not called projections, but rather queries. So why is that? Now, projections operate with two basic concepts. One is queries, and one is, well, let's call it projection, but it's projection page or a projection widget. Queries are the actual configurations on how you fetch content items. Don't mistake these with SQL queries. It's a similar concept, but a much higher level one. And once you created such queries, you can create projections to actually display those items on the front end. So a query is a configuration where you can even configure multiple displays of the same content item list. And then you can create projections, even multiple projections for the same query, to display it to the users on the front end. For example, you can create a projection page, which will be like a page, but just in a content list, or you can create a projection widget, which will be a widget with a list of content items. So let's see how this works. We need to start by adding a new query here. And let's call it, well, students. We already know those. And if we edit the students query, we will see all the basic features that we can configure. A query has basically three properties or three parts. Well, first of all, there are filters. And sort criteria and layouts. What are these? The concept here is that by default all the content items are returned. So if I would run this query now, it would return all the content items. With filters, I can filter from all of these content items to just those which I need. So let's do that, and true to the name of the query, let's filter on all the student content items. So let's add the filter, and there are several built-in filters. One of them is the content types filter. And with that, we can select students, to just filter for student content items. Now that we actually have something in the query, this preview button also is displayed, and if we click it, we will see, well, a preview of the result of the query. But this is really just a preview. This is not how it will look on the front end. Sort criteria is, well, about sorting. So by default, all the content items are displayed in their default order, which is in the order which they were created, I think. But here we can create a different way of sorting. So let's go there and there at the sort criterion. We could, for example, alter students by their name, or order students by their name. So we should have a title binding here. Now let's keep it in ascending order, so students will be sorted by the title in ascending order. By the way, do note that we can add multiple sort criteria and multiple filters too. And by the way, furthermore, we can also add filter groups. If we add filters, then those filters will be well, ended together. So if I add a new filter for, I don't know, students with only computer science major, then what will happen is that only those content items will be fetched that are students with the computer science major. But if you add a new group, then all the criteria or the filters in that group will be ORed together with the other group. So you could add a new group to also fetch blog posts. And now we have a single list with students and blog posts. There's a lot to projections, so if you are interested, please do take your time to play with it. There are also various tutorials out there that are in depth. And finally, what a query needs is a layout. So far, we have only selected which content items we need, in what kind of order, but we haven't thought about how to display them. And layouts is about displaying. So let's add a new layout. And again, there is an extensible list of layouts available in Orchard. What we will use now is the HTML list, which is probably the simplest one, which will be, well, a list. We don't need to change anything here if the defaults are good enough, but there are some details here that you may want to note. Well, first of all, the display mode can be either content or properties. What is that? In content display mode, the content items will be displayed in a so-called display type, which by default is summary. Without further explanation, let's try it like this, and we'll play with it to see how this affects how items are displayed. So I've just hit save, and now we are finished with our query. Next, we will create a projection to actually display it on the front end. So I will hit new projection here. Let's call it students2, and we will display items from the student query here with the default layout. Everything else can basically be on the default. Again, you can play with the options. Just one thing, you can also show a pager. So if there are too many items, the list can be paged. But if you have multiple projections on the same page, and since you can also display projections with widgets, you can have multiple projections, you have to configure a pager suffix. This is for being able to distinguish between pager URLs. But for now, let's hit save. And also, let's view it on the front end. Well, it seems that projections worked. So here we have the student list. It's indeed alphabetically ordered, so that's good. But let's take a look at what else is there. And let's go back to the HTML list layout. Now remember that we have this display type configured as summary here. And there are also some samples on what else there can be. Now, the display type is basically a string, a name, which kind of denotes a specific configuration of how a content item is displayed. For example, in the summary display type, content items commonly have a compact view. So their title is displayed, but from the body just a few characters, not the whole one. In detail, however, all the details are displayed, the full body, full title, everything. The summary is the display type that is commonly used in lists, and the detail is which is commonly used when opening the content item. And the summary admin is the list view that's used on the admin area. So what we see under content here. To be able to see the distinction, let's save with summary admin here. And I will reopen this page in a new window, so we can see the difference, which is actually not there. Let's try something. Well, it should be. Let's try detail. Maybe students wasn't the best example here. So I will quickly go back and try the whole thing. Oops. And try the whole thing with blog posts, because that will be more visible. So I'm just going back to the query, and we'll change the filter. And I will change the student type here to page. That will be more apparent. And let's go back to another HTML list. And now let's note that the display type is detail. So let's see what happens. Well, actually this is more like the summary. Let me check summary. Why? Oh, I think I remember what I messed up. Let's go back to the projections page. So the student's projection. And here I selected the default layout. Not the default layout should be selected here, but the unordered HTML list. Because the default layout, well, is just the default. We couldn't touch that. But the unordered HTML list is the one I've actually edited there. So let's select that and hit save. And now we should be able to see the changes. Yeah, so this is a page in summary, and I will open the same in detail, but this time in a new window. Yeah, so what we see on the left side is the summary view of the page, and on the right hand side the detail view of the page. So you can note the differences. The summary which is used for lists, and the details is used for when the content item is opened. in its full beauty. Projections can be used in really an insanely complex way. It's configurable in a variety of ways. The main point is that if you need some content item listing, projection will be your friend. You will need to use it in some way.